Well, hello, welcome back. How are you all today? I am in Mullaney on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland for a bit of a getaway. Every year around this time, we like to go up into the mountains because it's so pretty up here and it's so much colder than it is down in Brisbane. When I'm out and about on location and on holidays and things, I just bring my little Rode NT USB Mini, and there are links to purchase that in the gear section of the Bamby Media website, so you can have a look at that and you can hear what it sounds like based on this episode. So yeah, it's pretty good, pretty flippin' good for a very tiny microphone that you can take anywhere. Okay, so today what I want to talk about is podcasting statistics, which is always a super sexy topic. And I know you're like, ooh, I can't wait to hear all the things about podcasting statistics. But I really want to break this down because it is information that has been, the latest research has come out from a survey that Edison Research does with Triton Digital, and they survey a bunch of people about how they listen to audio. So it's not just for those people that listen to podcasts, but it's audio more broadly. So that includes radio, how people use smart speakers, those sorts of things. So then they put it into this report called the Infinite Dial, which comes out every year. And this year was particularly interesting because Australia overtook America in one particular area. So we're going to have a little look at it today. First up, the awareness of podcasting has actually improved. So as in, if you ask someone now, hey, do you know what a podcast is? A couple of years ago, lots of people would be like, no, what's a podcast? I've never listened to a podcast. And certainly older people were like, what's that? And you'd have to kind of explain, oh, it's kind of like a radio show, but it's like pre-recorded. And yeah, they didn't really get it. But these days, 90% of the population in Australia understands and knows what podcasting is. That's a big tick because for you to reach people, they have to know what that thing is, right? So yeah, be really happy with the fact that 90% of the population actually understands and knows what a podcast actually is. Now, if we move on to the more interesting aspect for me is the weekly podcast listening has really risen a lot. So it used to be that only, like in 2017, there was only 10% of the population that listened to podcasts weekly. But now, 2022, 26% of the population listens to podcasts every week. And that's really good news for you all that are creating podcasts because these statistics and these numbers are just going up. It's all climbing, meaning that, you know how when you say, oh, the market's flooded, there's too many podcasts, I'm never going to be heard, and those sorts of things. No, that's not the case because there's only 26% of the population listening to podcasts at the moment anyway. And that number is going to increase, which means the listenership increases, which means your visibility increases, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of all chases itself and it's really good and interesting. And now I want to break down how that compares to America. So America in 2017 had 15% of the population listening to podcasts, where we had 10%. So we were kind of lagging, and we have been lagging behind them for years and years and years. It's been something that has been quite slow, the uptake to podcasting for Australians. But these days, we are now neck and neck with America. The same amount of the population is listening to podcasts in America as those in Australia, which is great news. And we are definitely going to be overtaking America from what I can see and what I understand of the trajectory of how things are going. So this is really, really good. Obviously, we have a much smaller population, so the amount of people listening to podcast in America is a lot bigger than it is in Australia, but the percentage-wise is what I'm really interested in. The next thing they broke down is how people listen to podcasts most frequently, and this is still a little bit of COVID times. So through COVID, lots of people listened to podcasts in their home because they weren't going anywhere else. In previous years, it was more in the car and out and about. But this year, 2022, it is still really, really high on the list. So still 83% of the people that listen to podcasts listen to them in the home most frequently, which is a huge number. And in fact, that's actually really good news, because if you do have a podcast and you want people to be listening to it, if you know they're in their home listening, then they are more likely to be listening for a longer period because they're doing something else at the same time. So they're cleaning, they're cooking. There are more interruptions at home generally, especially if they have kids. Like if your demographic is more likely to have children, then they will definitely be more interrupted. So that's something to be aware of. Maybe keep the episodes shorter so that they have more break capabilities. Longer episodes, you need to be a bit more dedicated to the listening experience. So otherwise you just don't get to the end of it. And I have done episodes on episode length and what's optimal and those sorts of things before. But 83% of people are at home when they are listening to podcasts. 60% of people are in their car. And 50% are walking around on foot. So they're the most common ways that people listen to podcasts, and I believe what you would expect. Like you kind of expect that would be the case. I am going to be interested in how that shifts now that COVID times are sort of over and everyone's returning to at least some sort of hybrid model of work. Sometimes they're at home, sometimes they're out and about. I would like to see how people change their listening habits, whether they do or whether they've become used to listening in a certain way and whether they stick with it. The next best bit of statistics that I find really cool is the actual number of the average number of podcasts that a person is subscribed to. And that is 8. So your normal everyday person who listens to podcasts quite frequently, they are actually subscribed to 8 shows. I know for me personally, I am subscribed to a lot more shows than that. We have over 60 clients. So I listen to a lot of those. I may not edit them all these days, but I definitely try and listen to as much as I can, just to see how my editors are going too, and keep people on track with those sorts of things. So I subscribe to a lot of shows. And then for my own personal fun times, I listen to a bunch of shows there. I guess when I think about it, maybe I'm probably sitting in about 10 shows that are for my entertainment, like outside of work. Not that I don't find our clients entertaining, but I mean different shows that aren't ours. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see where you sit in that number if you sat down and thought about and maybe go through your library on your phone as to how many episodes you actually subscribe to. Podcasts you subscribe to. That could be a little bit of good information. It's not a huge number though, right? So you're competing with a lot of shows. So if someone only really has space in their week to listen to maybe 8 shows. So your show's got to be pretty freaking good for you to make the cut. Now, if your demographic isn't listening to podcasts as regularly, they're not as used to them, and you happen to hook them into listening to podcasts, then that's a good area of the market because they are fresh. But if they are listening to podcasts regularly and they're going to be asking the question, well, why should I listen to that one when I can get this information from a different one on a similar sort of topic? So that's where, again, I have episodes previously about how important your content is, and it needs to be really good for people to actually subscribe and stay there long term. And the final bit of statistic that I want to share with you today is how long people are listening to podcasts for in a week. Now, this is pretty amazing because it has jumped significantly from the previous year. So in 2021, 5 hours a week was dedicated to listening to podcasts. And now this year, we are up to over 7 hours of listening to podcasts, which is great. That's an extra 2 hours that regular podcast listeners are now listening to podcasts for. And it makes sense as far as the more people knowing about podcasting and more people subscribing to more shows, and just the general industry itself is really going very, very well. But to know that in a year you've got 2 extra hours that someone is listening to podcasts for, it means that the medium is really on the rise and people are really connecting with it and engaging with that content. So that is awesome news. And it's awesome for you if you have a podcast, because you can know that the industry is only expanding. There is no contraction here. So this is the time to up your game, to really think about, if you haven't started one, to start one, but to start a good one. You're competing with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of noise out there, and there are a lot of crappy podcasts. Like, I have heard so many crappy podcasts that shouldn't exist because they are so bad. So yours needs to be really good, and you need to think about the ways that you can make it good. Your audio quality needs to be really good. The content needs to be on point. You need to research your topics. Like, this is all stuff that I've spoken about before, and you can go back to other podcast episodes where I explain these things. But this statistic and these statistics show you that the industry is on the rise, and that you need to get serious about what you're doing here to make sure that you can be here from the ground up. It's kind of like when Instagram started, or some sort of, well, it is a social media platform, really, at the end of the day. Those ones that got in early and built their network and communities early have huge followings now. And that can be you as well. So it needs to be something that you're really strategic about and you think about, and you don't delay starting if you feel like you've got something good and that you can commit to it. If you want access to all the masterclasses that I'm going to be running throughout the year, there will be 12 of them, so one every month. If you want access to all of them at a reduced price, join the Podlovers Plus. So the Podlovers Plus is where you can go to have access to those masterclasses as they happen. You get unlimited replay of that. You'll get the transcripts. You'll get notes on them. You'll also get group discussion. You can also ask questions within the community. That means that I will actually get to answer them, troubleshoot things, and those sorts of stuff. It's not a massive community of whole bunch of touch points, and I'm not interested in running a group like that. I just wanted a place to be able to house these masterclasses that feel like you are creating a community and a network of people that are also trying to grow their show, but not feel like they have to do a bunch of stuff or they have to be really involved. You can just pop in, watch the videos, and then ask questions and discuss. After a masterclass, discuss what I've spoken about and break it down further. So that's what the Podlovers Plus is. Okay, that's it for me today. I hope you've had a lovely day so far, and I'm sorry I have been not in your ears as much as I would like, but we will be getting back into it. Bye.